Welcome. We are happy you are here. My name is Tiffany Mays-Hellor. Welcome to the Breaking Free Strategies to Tackle Unsecured Debt webinar on behalf of our president, Ron Busby, our board, chambers, and our staff. We thank you for attending. U.S. Black Chambers is affectionately known as the global voice of Black business. We represent over 175 Black chambers of commerce and small businesses across the nation and are founded on 6 pillars of service. Those are advocacy, access to capital, contracting, entrepreneurial training, chamber development, and information. This webinar was crafted in collaboration with American Consumer Credit Counseling, ACCC. Before I introduce today's guest, I encourage you to drop your questions into the chat and we will address as many as possible at the end of today's webinar. Any questions we don't get a chance to answer during the webinar today, please email us at programs@usblackchambers.org. Now, for our introduction, Kenneth Muhammad is a senior leadership figure. Let me go over and show the slide. Let's see. Kenneth Muhammad is a senior leadership figure at American Consumer Credit Counseling, ACCC, a nonprofit credit counseling organization dedicated to helping individuals and families manage debt, improve credit, and achieve financial stability. As Director of Client Management, Kenneth is a seasoned credit counseling professional with over 18 years of experience in the field, combining hands-on client service with leadership in departmental operations. His work at ACCC reflects a commitment to financial education, client empowerment, and organizational growth. I'm telling you right now, Kenneth, it's always an honor and a pleasure to welcome you back to the USBC family.
Thank you so
And I
much.
will stop sharing. The floor is
Well,
yours.
well, thank you so much for that great introduction, Tiffany. And I'm really glad to be here. I think this is one of my second or third webinars that I've done. Today, we're going to talk about what to do if you are drowning in debt. And I'm going to share my slides in a bit. And what we're going to do is go over not just the materials on the slide, but a little bit of additional information that we see here at American Consumer Credit Counseling when we're talking to our clients who call in who are either struggling with debt or need advice or just want a few tips on what to do in their budgeting situation. So bear with me here for 1 minute. Okay, great. All right, so what to do if you're drowning in debt. And again, this is a guide to not just understanding debt, but you also want to protect your priorities. Your priorities, we're going to discuss a little bit when we talk about secured and unsecured debt. But again, we're going to just begin with a little bit about American Consumer Credit Counseling. So first, we offer free and confidential financial assessments, and we assess your situation. Most of the clients that we do speak to, we go through about an hour and a half consultation. We look at your budget, we look at assets, and we discuss things not only regarding your budget, but we also look at net worth, debt to income ratio, et cetera. We have a free debt management program. When I say free, the consultation is free. And in most states, like Georgia and a few other states, it's actually free enrollment into the program. But the debt management plan, what we do is we reduce interest in payments, reduce payments on your credit cards to make them more affordable and to get you out of debt affordably. We also offer a bankruptcy certificate. So those who do feel like they need to file or maybe are looking into filing, you can get the free education certificate. And the certificate actually goes over a lot of different ways you can get out of debt other than bankruptcy. So the goal from the Department of Justice is to really show people all of the different ways they can get out of debt without having to file bankruptcy. We also have housing counseling, and what we have also is a QR code that we're going to share with you at the end as well. So if you can't scan the code now, you will be able to scan it later. But there's a lot of free resources and tools that that QR code will bring you to on our website. So starting off, it's very important to understand that debt can feel isolating. Sometimes it brings a level of embarrassment. especially if you're having trouble making payments, if you're facing pressure and you have high balances, high interest rates. And the bad news that we're seeing across the country is that the cost of living is increasing and it's actually outpacing income. So again, even though it feels like you're working hard and you're really trying to make ends meet, it's really harder to get ahead today than what it was even 2 to 3 years ago. So right now in America, credit card debt I want to say totaling about 1.3 trillion, which is the highest that it's ever been in the United States. So again, you're not alone, even though it might feel like you are. So what we're going to cover today is why debt can feel so hard to escape, the difference between secured and unsecured debt, as I mentioned before, how to organize your bills and find out exactly what you owe, how to find room in your budget to actually create a plan to pay down your debt payoff strategies, when outside help may make sense, and why savings still matters. So the reason why your debt may feel like it's not increasing, even though you're making your monthly payments each month, is because the credit card companies design your minimum payment to be, I would say, close to 75, and in some situations, even 100% interest. A lot of credit card companies will have interest-only payments, or you could have a payment that's $200 to $400, and after you make that payment, once the interest is charged, they're only going to apply maybe $50 towards the principal balance. And that's the reason why it feels like you're making monthly payments and you're not getting anywhere. So a lot of the clients that we see today average about 27,000 in debt, and we see clients who have a lot more. When it comes to that type of debt load, it could literally take 20 to 30 years to pay down the debt, and getting some sort of plan in place to actually attack the debt is very important when you're faced in that kind of situation. So we call it the shrinking payment trick. As you start to pay down the balance, the credit card company will slowly lower your minimum payment so that you stick with the card a lot longer, and the interest that they're getting off of you is going to be a lot more in the long run. So the first thing you want to do is you want to start with a clear picture. Your goal is to create an accurate budget to see where you stand once all your bills are paid. So in order to do that, you want to look at your credit card statements, loan statements, medical bills, utility bills, credit report, pay stubs, and income record, as well as bank statements. The reason why it's very important to start with a clear picture is because it's really going to tell you what your plan of attack is going to be. It will also tell you exactly when you need to reach out to possibly a third party like American Consumer Credit Counseling. I would have to say maybe 50 to 60% of the clients that we do see, once they add up all their bills, including the minimums on their credit cards, a lot of them are in a deficit. So again, you got to know where you're starting from to understand where you're going to go. So secured debt versus what some people call real debt or unsecured debt. Secured debt is anything that has an asset tied to it, excuse me, a mortgage, a car loan, motorcycle loan, a boat loan, even a home equity line of credit. Even though it seems like it's just a line of credit, it is attached to your home. Unsecured debt would be credit cards, personal loans, medical debt, utility debt, and student loans. Anything where there is no asset that could be repossessed to pay back the loan. So, for example, a credit card, they're just going off of your credit score and your credit history to determine if they're going to extend you credit, but there's no type of collateral attached to it. So, collateral would be the key word, asset would be the key word. If anything like that is attached to the loan, then it would be secured. If there's no asset tied to the loan, then it would be unsecured. Now, because unsecured debt is not tied to an asset, it tends to have a much higher interest rate because, again, they're just going off of your history or your credit worthiness to extend that loan. So, of course, they're going to want to charge a higher interest rate. It's a higher risk to the bank. If you fall delinquent on your home, they can always come back and repossess the home or repossess your car. And again, they can at least sell it and offset some of the expense, where credit cards, personal loans, etc., they cannot do that. So you have to treat different debts differently. And that's very important because the first number one bill that you always want to pay is anything that you need for your basic living expenses, your housing, your food, your transportation, utilities, childcare. So when it comes to transportation, some people will say, well, a car is not necessarily a necessity, but if you're using your car for work, you're using your car to make income, then your car is right up there with food, housing, and transportation. Secured debt would be next. There's kind of a little caveat to secured debt because if you feel like, hey, I have this motorcycle, I have this boat, and I can sell this boat or get rid of it, you actually have some wiggle room there. So you can do that and again, get rid of the asset yourself. But again, if you don't want that asset to be repossessed, that would actually come second in your list of priorities. Medical debt, student loans, and utility debt. There's usually assistance with those three type of debts. Student loans, there's definitely different deferment plans. You can go to studentloan.gov and they can give you some different plans. And based on your income, you can create an income-driven plan. You can go on an extended rate plan. So there's definitely some sort of assistance with student loans and of course utility debt. A lot of utility companies are willing to work out a plan with you. The last but not least is credit cards and personal loans. So those type of debts usually need some sort of strategy if you want to pay it down. And that strategy is going to have to come from you and your knowledge of how to deal with those type of debts. So you're going to have to get some sort of help or structured help to make that debt manageable when it is no longer manageable. So the first thing you want to do is build your debt list. You want to have the list of all your lenders, the type of debt, the balances that you owe, the interest rates, and the minimum payments. Interest rate and minimum payment is key because we're going to talk about that when we look at strategies. Due date is really more so you can know exactly when these bills are due so you can better manage your pay cycles, your paychecks, etc. Credit limit is very important because it also tells you what they call utilization rates are going to be. So if you have accounts that are maxed out and you have other accounts that have some available credit, you're going to want to definitely tackle some of the maxed out debt first because that will inherently help your credit score improve a lot faster. So you also want to get a list of anything that's on auto pay, past due bills, anything on a hardship plan, or even in collection status. You can get a lot of that information from your credit report. You are entitled to get at least 2 free credit reports per year. And there's some credit bureaus that will actually give you a free credit report per month because of a data breach. I want to say it could be Experian, but I can get additional information if you have any questions. Again, you can put that right in the chat and we can get that information for you. So, how do you actually get additional money to put towards debt? So, what a lot of the credit counselors that I work with do, the first thing we look for is we look to cut or reduce expenses that is not essential. That would be things like streaming services, that would be entertainment, clothing. We have a lot of clients who call in and say, no, I have plenty of clothing. I don't even need a clothing budget at this time. Or, I go on trips with my family, so I don't need to really have a huge entertainment budget. So you want to start looking for expenses that you think you can cut back. And that's key because some of those expenses do sometimes seem like they are essential. For instance, if you're putting away towards your retirement and you're getting, let's say, a 10% return a year, but your debt's growing at 30% a year, it might be wise to hold off on putting, let's say, in a 401k or an IRA and pay down the debt first, and then you could put double or triple into that 401k or IRA later. You also want to look at ways to increase your income. Are you able to work overtime? Are there side jobs that you're able to work? Are you able to sell unused items, even some of those secured debts that you might have? Are you able to sell some of those to reduce some of your bills? So again, the goal is not to create a perfect budget. There really is no perfect budget. A budget in our mind as counselors is a living, breathable thing. As things change, as groceries prices change, as gas change, your budget's going to change. And you really want to maintain that budget monthly, sometimes even weekly. A lot of the clients that we work with use an app that we have called Credit You, and they actually update their budget on a weekly basis, depending on how bills or expenses are going. But again, the goal is to have a realistic plan that you can follow, something that's roughly accurate so you know exactly where your money's going, not just this week, but next week, next month, the month after, etc. So, looking for hidden leaks in your budget. We see this a lot. We have clients who say, "No, I got, this much left over at the end of the month." And after we start looking at delivery app fees, after we start looking at streaming services, gym memberships they're not using, again, a lot of them are either really close to breaking even or some are even in a deficit. So it's very, very important that you look at some of the small expenses. And the reason is a lot of times when we create a budget and someone is not saving what they want to save or they're in a deficit, there's at least 20 different line items in a budget from food to, insurance, gasoline, utilities. And if you can try and shave $5 to $10 off of each one of those expenses, it can free up a couple $100 per month. But it works in the opposite way as well. If you have, $20 in late fees, overdraft fees, ATM fees, subscription services, those can slowly eat away a few $100 per month in income or in savings that you think you have. But you really don't, because when the month is over, you're wondering, hey, why don't I have anything in savings? It's usually items or bullet points on the slide that you're seeing now that could cause that type of situation. So, should you save or pay down your debt? We like to say you want to do both if you can. So, really having a small emergency fund to prevent obtaining new debt is really the way to go. A lot of our clients, I would say 90% became or fell into a debt situation because of an emergency. It wasn't just simple overspending. It wasn't a situation where, they were just going crazy at the mall or the department store. Someone either lost income and they had to use the credit cards to pay bills while that income was reduced. In some situations, they had a car repair. So it takes very little to kind of throw you in a tailspin. So having an emergency account will prevent that. But again, savings is not a distraction from debt payments, it's protection from going deeper into debt. A lot of our clients, once they join our program, they have maybe 200 to 300 left over. And the first thing they want to do is pay extra towards the debt to get out of debt faster. And what we do is we advise them to start creating a savings account, build 3 to 6 months of living expenses so that if you ever run into a situation, you can float your bills for 3 to 6 months. And once you have that nice kind of cushion, then you can start paying extra towards your debt. Excuse me. So we're going to talk about debt payoff options. Debt payoff option one is the snowball method. So this method is really for people who want to see some sort of accomplishments early in the process. So what you would do is you would pay off the smallest balances first. So how that works is all of your debt, you're going to make minimum payments, but you're going to put extra towards the accounts that have the smallest balances. So what's going to happen is over time, you're going to see these small balance credit cards getting paid off, and it feels really good. It's very motivational. And again, it feels like a really quick win to motivate you to keep going. But you are going to pay more interest over time if the larger balances are actually your highest interest rate accounts. Because what's happening is they're actually growing a little faster than the smaller accounts that you're paying off. Excuse me. Debt payoff option number two is the avalanche method. What this method is about is you still make minimum payments on all your debt, but you put extra money towards the debt that has the highest interest rate. So once you start putting money to the highest interest rates accounts, even though it feels like it's going to take a while to pay down those accounts, you're actually going to get out of debt a lot faster because once you pay off the high interest rate debt, you have to remember that minimum payment is no longer due, and you're going to take that and then start putting those onto the smaller debt account. So you might pay on a big debt for a year and a half before you actually pay it down. But then the other smaller accounts have been paid on for that year and a half. And now you're taking that payment you were making on that big account and paying off those smaller accounts. So it doesn't always have to be a big account, small account situation. It's more about highest interest rate first. Paying down the highest interest rate debt will always get you out of debt the fastest. In our debt management program, most clients have an average of, I want to say, about 5.5 credit cards. Again, that's a statistic, so the half, there's really no half a credit card. But let's say a client has 5 to 6 credit cards. Once an account is paid down, we take that minimum payment and we then put it to the next highest interest rate account to get them out of debt the fastest. And that's really the best move. But that is the avalanche method. Option number three is the blizzard method. It's kind of a combination of both. So it has the motivation piece in it as well as saving, more by paying down high interest rates. So you start by paying off maybe one small balance for a quick win, and then you switch over to a high interest rate account and start paying that one down as well. So what it does is it keeps you motivated and you're saving money at the same time. Again, this is all based on your budgeting and keeping track of your interest rates. So if you go back to the first few slides, knowing who has the highest interest rate, what the minimum payments are is key because that's going to tell you which one of these methods you're going to use. Or you decide on which method you want to use, but you got to know who has the highest interest rate for any of these three methods to really work. And then there is a consolidation option. So debt consolidation can definitely simplify payments. It's not always the right choice. It's not automatically the right choice. But most people will sometimes use a zero balance credit card. We see those clients all day, every day. The reason is they'll transfer balances from high interest rate credit cards to lower rate credit cards. However, they don't have a plan to pay off the debt on the 0% card they just transferred all of their money to before the promotional period ends. So what happens within a year or two, you're back to a high interest rate credit card that you just transferred your other accounts to. And there's also transfer fees. And not to mention, once clients transfer the money over to the 0% card, they don't close the accounts that now have zero balance. So now they start running up the old credit cards again. So now they're in actually a worse situation than where they started. So that all can be prevented with budgeting. If you're in a deficit and you transfer money to a 0% card and it does not fix your deficit, you almost have to use the other credit cards again to keep your monthly bills going, to pay off all of your obligations. So doing the budget is really the first step to determining if consolidation is an option. So another consolidation option is a personal loan. 75% of our clients have a debt consolidation loan. It goes back to what I was just saying. They get a loan to pay off all the credit cards. They really didn't do a budget first. The loan payment is still too expensive. And what happens? They have to still use the credit cards to pay their monthly bills, to pay their monthly expenses. So again, most of our clients, who have credit card debt always have a personal loan or two or three on the side that they got years ago that they still haven't paid off, and they still didn't work on a plan for savings. So what happens is when you run into an emergency, and it doesn't have to be, something major like a death in the family. It could be something as simple as blowing a tire and not having enough to actually buy new tires for the car, or a large car repair. Anything along those lines could just throw your budget kind of in a tailspin if you don't have savings. So before getting a personal loan, definitely do a budget first, see if it's affordable, because it might not be the right option for you if you have to turn around and still use the credit cards. Again, all of our clients that we see who join our program have some sort of loan that they got in the past, but it didn't solve the problem. So when will you or may consider outside help? If you're making only minimum payments, the interest is keeping your balances from going down, you're missing payments, you're using credit cards for basic needs, or you just feel stressed out and overwhelmed and you don't know where to start, that's when you want to seek a company like American Consumer Credit Counseling. So what we would do is consolidate the accounts that you don't or can't afford to pay on, or you don't see any progress in paying them down. We'll consolidate them into one monthly payment with lower rates and a much lower payment than what you're paying combined. Good news is you're also allowed to have an emergency account if you need one. Excuse me. So when it comes to making only minimum payments, there's actually a plan that some clients actually try where they make or take today's minimum payment and they lock that payment in. So every month they're making what the payment was when they started that kind of payoff plan. So if you're making minimum payments, it doesn't always mean you need outside help. But if you can lock that payment in and make that payment every single month, the creditors are going to start asking for less. So if your payment today on a $10,000 credit card is 300, you make your payment of 300. Next month it might be 295. It still make $300 payment. Next month after that, it might be 275. Still make your $300 payment. So again, if you can afford today's minimum payment, you can lock that in and make that payment every single month until those accounts are paid down. But again, if you're having trouble making or affording those minimums, absolutely, absolutely seek outside help. Another option would be, again, our program, which is a nonprofit credit counseling, which is a debt management program. Some creditors actually have a hardship program. So we call that a self-administered plan. You can call your creditors directly, and they'll actually help you reduce rates and payments. Excuse me. Last but not least is bankruptcy. So a lot of people say, "Hey, is bankruptcy the right way to go?" No one ever, filed bankruptcy and ended up in a worse position, or else they just went and filed. Bankruptcy is not meant to take your house or take your car. The goal is to actually get rid of the debt that's unaffordable. However, they do the same thing that we do. They do a budget, and if you can afford to pay a little bit back, they're going to put you into what's called a Chapter 13 payment. But again, seek an attorney, and they'll tell you the ins and outs of a bankruptcy. So, an important distinction between a debt management plan is generally that we work with unsecured debt, such as credit cards and personal loans. There are some personal loan companies that don't work with us, but a majority of them do. And again, they can simplify payments, reduce interest rates. But again, the accounts you put into a program will be closed, and repayment on average is about 36 months. Compared to 10 to 20, 30 years if you're paying them on your own. 36 months, 42 months on average isn't bad at all. Not to mention your credit gets better through a debt management program because the creditors are reporting you as current. And when they're reporting you as current, your credit is actually going to improve. Plus, you could keep an emergency account if you need one for travel. If you're a small business owner and you need an additional credit card, you definitely can keep one in case of an emergency, or two, depending on the benefits. So a real issue that we're seeing today is debt settlement. Debt settlement is a totally different animal that almost masquerades as debt management. They'll even go by that name, debt management or debt consolidation. But what they do is they let the debt go delinquent first. Okay. So you're making payments to the debt settlement company. However, your debt is actually going past due. And what they're doing is they're taking your money and they're putting it into an escrow account. And what's happening there is that when the money's going into an escrow account, your credit report is really taking a dive. Nobody's getting paid. And usually what happens is the accounts go into collections, and then they try to work some sort of settlement agreement with the collection agency. So it ruins your credit. About 50% of the clients that we see who join that kind of program actually get sued, meaning you're making payments probably for a few years. The first few creditors that settle or get payment, they're okay, but you still are going to have one or two creditors left, and those creditors don't want to wait 3 and 4 years to get paid, so they can sue you and still file judgment. Not to mention there are tons of fees that apply. So think of all the accounts that you're going to settle on. All of the late fees, all of the penalties are being added. So most people who settle, the debt settlement company will say, yeah, we're going to settle for, 50 cents on the dollar. If you have $10,000 worth of debt, we're going to settle for 5,000. By the time all the fees are added on, you're probably closer to 15. And so by the time you settle, you're probably settling for seven and a half, $7,500. So what's happening is you're not really settling for 50 cents on the dollars once all the fees and taxes and penalties are applied. And the biggest complaints that we're getting now from clients are ones who have already joined these companies. They're not settling, number one, the first maybe 6, 7 eight payments that they're making, which are pretty large payments, meaning they're looking for, let's say if your regular payments are 1,000 a month, they're probably going to ask you for about $700 a month. So you think you're getting a great deal, but those first five, six payments are actually going to them as a fee first, before they do anything with your creditors or anything with your debt. Okay, so debt settlement, every client that we've talked to who has joined debt settlement, all of them said that if they had known about debt management or nonprofit debt management first, they would have actually gone that route and not done debt settlement. But all of the commercials you're seeing today, all of the radio ads that you're hearing today, 90% are all debt settlement companies because they have huge pockets, because they charge so many fees, but they have huge pockets to actually run the radio ads and do a lot of promoting and marketing. So be careful. If you're looking for a good nonprofit agency, again, American Consumer Credit Counseling. We've been in business for 30 years. We have, I want to say, almost 50,000 five-star reviews. But again, if you just want to find maybe an agency in your area, you can always go to the nfcc.org, which is a National Foundation for Credit Counseling, and they can refer you to an agency just like ours. So we definitely don't want to pigeonhole you to our company. We just want to make sure you do go to the right place. All right. So, your action plan. When the debt feels overwhelming, again, get your list of debts, get your list of priorities, separate secured from unsecured, choose a repayment path, excuse me, snowball, avalanche, blizzard, consolidation, or get some outside help. And here at American Consumer Credit Counseling, again, if you reach out to us, counselor's going to spend hour and a half with you on the phone. If you decide, hey, I can do one of these other methods myself, absolutely, and we'll be here if you need us. And again, if you really need someone to reach out to your creditors to reduce your rates and payments, we can do that as well. And of course, last but not least, regardless of what plan you go with, build a safety net, start saving. I don't care if it's $5 or $10 a month, a week, whatever the case may be. You want to have an emergency account. Again, here at American Consumer Credit Counseling, part of our debt management plan, we partner with a bank who is actually doing matching funds with a savings account, so you can build savings while getting out of debt. That's how important we know it is, and we think it is. So, again, savings should always be part of your plan. All right. So, as my closing message, I just want to say get organized, choose a plan, try to stick with that plan. It does take consistency. If you do fall off one month, you start up the very next month and you can keep your plan going. So, again, don't let one mistake or you falling off the plan for a little while, don't let that be a deterrent to not do it again. When you get a plan that works for you, stick with it. It does take some discipline, but again, you will see the difference pretty quickly. And once you do see the difference, it's even more motivating to keep on going with that plan. So, final takeaway is, again, don't feel overwhelmed. It's very common. There's a lot of people going through what you're going through if you're facing that. Pick the right structure for you. You might want to start with the avalanche plan first and then move over to the blizzard plan. You can try different things, but try what works best for you. And again, try whatever strategy you think is going to work best for your family and your household. So progress is possible. And again, there's different ways and different options out there for you. So like I've said before, you can reach out to American Consumer Credit Counseling. And if we can't help you, we'll definitely point you in the right direction. So now's the time for questions. You can definitely email me directly. I work with 65 different counselors. I also have a good team of administrators. So you can reach out to me at kmohammed@consumercredit.com. And I will get your question, get it to a counselor. We're open from 9 in the morning Eastern to 11:30 at night Eastern. And you can reach out to us at any time. You can also visit our website, which is consumercredit.com, or you can download the app, which is Credit U. Our Credit U app, you can actually do your budget, get tips, and do everything on your own without having to call or speak with anyone. But again, if you want to speak to a live counselor, you can reach out to American Consumer Credit Counseling. And here's that QR code again. So if you have any questions, You should be able to scan this QR code. By scanning the QR code, it'll take you to our list of resources, and you can pick different resources, read blogs, a lot of different information on our website. So definitely use the QR code. I can give the QR code to Tiffany as well if anyone needs it moving forward. And what we want you to do as well is don't be afraid to ask for help, and also refer anybody that you know who might be going through um, any type of financial situation. Refer them to us. I would have to say probably 30% of our clients refer family and friends. Debt used to be kind of a thing that people didn't talk about. Now it's all over the internet. A lot of influencers are talking about it. So share this QR code, share the phone number, share the website. Again, even if you don't need it, if you know someone who needs it, definitely give them a call or have them give us a call, and let them know that you're coming from the USBC, and we'll even reduce that enrollment fee for them as well. And of course, here's another QR code. Sorry for all the QR codes, but we want to know how we did and how we're doing. So we want feedback from you. So if you could take 3 to 5 minutes to complete a survey, we would greatly appreciate it. And the surveys, I want to say, could be through a third-party site, but it is something that is linked directly to us. So your feedback, again, would be greatly appreciated. And I just want to thank everyone for their time today. Thank Tiffany and the USBC. Our partnership with the USBC, I want to say, is a great partnership. We really like working with the USBC and the community as well. So it is something that is very dear and near to us. So I want to thank you, Tiffany.
Kenneth, that was an excellent presentation. Um, a great time at the top of the summer to get down to the basics, the
Absolutely.
foundation of finances. USBC programs is always happy to um, support ACCC, and we are very grateful to be in partnership. Um,
Likewise.
we're grateful that we have so many QR codes, Kenneth. That was
Yeah,
so
I know. I
organized.
know.
No, honestly, because like you hit at the top of this webinar, this is a very personal thing. So when questions do come through, they may be personal. So thank you for
Absolutely.
sharing your email account. USBlackChambers.org website does have the link for ACC for you to sign up for a free consultation. There's so many different ways. Everyone that was here today will receive a recap email
Awesome.
with tips and tricks from your presentation. This presentation has been recorded and will be uploaded to the US Black Chambers YouTube library archive. And there is a question. The chat was disabled. My apologies. Q&A was open for questions.
Mhm.
Kenneth, you said ACCC is happy to be in partnership with USBC. The question in Q&A is, how does this apply to entrepreneurs? What is the tie? I think it's a great question.
It is.
Today's
It is.
presentation, how does it tie to small business owners, Kenneth?
Absolutely. So most small business owners start off by actually using their personal debt, their personal credit cards when they are in business. Especially if they're not new businesses, a lot of times to get established, they have to use their credit cards. When I went to Boston College, and my first professor, he owned a business, and he had us doing his books. And the first thing he showed us was that in the first year that he was open, he used nothing but credit to run his business, and that at the end of the year, once he made enough money, he would pay off all his lines of credit, and he would start back over again in January. So a lot of entrepreneurs actually don't get the funding they need right at the beginning, so they use their credit cards, which is a lot higher interest. So it definitely falls in line. Businesses, it's very important that you split your personal expenses from your business expenses. It's also very important as a business, when you are doing a budget, you don't want to go off of your best month, or you don't want to go, you don't want to use your best month or best season to do your budget, right? What you want to do is you want to know what your monthly obligations are. You want to say, okay, if I have, $8,000 a month in bills, your break-even point is $8,000 a month. So when things are good and you're getting 12,000, you have to know that that other four has to go to the months where you're not getting the 8,000. You're only getting three, or you're only getting four, and you're only getting five. So we work with a lot of business owners. Um, it sounds a little weird, but we do the expenses first to see what that total is on a monthly basis. And then we go back and say, okay, this is where you need to be every month on income. And if you go over this amount, it has to go to the months where you don't make enough to cover those expenses. So it's even a little bit, takes more discipline being a business owner, right? A budget is everything as a business owner. You need to know where you're running expense wise. And like I said, the hardest part is the months where you're doing great. You got to know that that extra is really not extra. It's going to go to those months when business is slow.
Mm-hmm. Excellent question. Thank you for that answer. Um, Kenneth, if I was a small business owner
Mm-hmm.
and I am weighing the pros and cons of filing for bankruptcy, for example, maybe I just want to keep my house.
Mm-hmm.
Would I come to ACCC first and schedule a free consultant, like
No, so
consultation, or would I go
great
talk to an
question.
attorney, or what would be
You
my
would
first step?
Great question. You would talk to an attorney first.
Okay.
An attorney is going to have you get what's called a pre-filing certificate, and that's what we offer. A pre-filing certificate is really a budget and counseling session where you want to create a budget and you want to see what's left over at the end of the month. Because when you file bankruptcy, you don't get to choose whether you file Chapter 7 or Chapter 13.
Okay.
Chapter 7 means they wipe all your debt away. Chapter 13 means they see extra money left over after all of your bare necessities. And whatever's left over, they can go ahead and say, you're now going to still have a payment. So even though you're filing, you're going to make a payment of a certain amount per month. So we've had clients who we presented them with the debt management program. Let's say the payment was $500 a month. When they went, they said, no, I think I'd rather look at filing. They go to file, and the attorney and the court say, yeah, we're not going to allow you this much for entertainment. We're not going to allow you this much for clothing. You have a car you can't afford. So even though your car payment's 600, we're only going to allot you four. When that was all said and done, the courts had almost $1,200 left over for this person to pay back to their creditors. And they called us right back. They said, nope, no more bankruptcy. Called us right back. The good thing about a debt management plan is you can have your kids' travel soccer team in your budget, and we'll work around it. You can have maybe a second car, or you can try and have a motorcycle if you have one. You don't have to get rid of it in a debt management plan. In a bankruptcy, they're going to say, this is what you need to live. Whatever is left over is going to go back to your creditor. So we're no, you can't have a boat and a motorcycle and two cars if you only need one car to get to work. Again, I'm not an attorney.
Right.
An attorney will tell you that, but they're going to really get it down to what you need. And they also look at tax returns. They look at what you're putting in your 401k, because those are two common places that people try to hide money to get a Chapter 7, where they just wipe away the debt. And the first thing they do is they look at those areas. So in a debt management program, we don't care what you're putting in your 401k. If you're putting too much and we need some to balance the budget, a counselor will say, hey, instead of putting 15% in the 401k, can we drop it to 10 possibly? So you have some extra money here to pay down your debt. But again, when the debt's growing faster than your 401k, it's usually a good option. Because within 3 years, you'll be able to put double into that 401k. But again, I'm not an attorney. I don't want to give legal advice, but we'll give you the certificate, and we will show you what other options are out there other than bankruptcy. So that's what the pre-counseling is for. And then you also, if you do decide to file, we offer what's called a post-counseling certificate, where you can relook at those budgeting items and information as well.
I appreciate that. Very direct. I learned a lot today. I learned the definition of unsecured debt. I learned the difference between debt management and debt settlement, and the process if I'm weighing the pros and cons to bankruptcy, what my next step should be, which
Correct.
here at USBC, we really appreciate you always touching base and giving us the pulse check of the moment, because we know This is an interesting time in history, and things are changing by the day, sometimes the
Right.
hour. Um,
Right.
I appreciate that you mentioned the difference of a nonprofit credit counseling organization like yourself, and the fact that you even shared the www.infcc.org, which is
Correct.
kind of the umbrella of all of the
Yes.
nonprofits. So, thank you for that. And we will definitely share that website as well. But in partnership with ACCC,
Absolutely.
USBC is so grateful to have you here. I'm going to share my screen because I do want to share the following 3 webinars to
Okay.
end out 2026. So let me share my screen. All right. So when you go to usblackchambers.org, you're going to see at the top of our website this banner that just goes through. This is our QR code to schedule your free consultation with ACC. Kenneth, I did hear that you mentioned in your presentation when small business owners mention that they were referred or found out about you through USBC.
Mhm.
Is there something that switches in the fee? Do you give discount? Did I hear you say that?
Yes, especially so we have been doing that, and we also been doing it for referrals as well. So if you were
Okay.
referred by someone from the USBC, we've been giving out the enrollment fee waiver,
Okay, we appreciate you for that.
and it's
Because
only
that
it's
is the fact. For now, it's not
yeah,
forever.
no, but it's only 39. We've had no clients ever complain about that fee. It was $39 to enroll in the program. That's the lowest fee in the industry. So,
Oh,
when you're
fantastic.
saving 500-600 bucks a month on your credit card payments, no one's ever really complained about the 39 bucks, to get it going. So,
Well, that's
but again,
important to include. Thank you
yeah,
for noting
absolutely,
that.
absolutely.
September 10th, we're going to have you back, sir, and you'll be speaking on how to plan for the unexpected. December 1st, Credit Demystified. That's part 1, how it works and why it matters. December 8th, I apologize for my mistake. That's part 2. It needs to say part 2, Own Your Credit Journey. So we're excited to have you come and prep us at the end of the year for the top of 2027.
Awesome.
Thank you, Kenneth. I'm going to close out with a few reminders to our listeners. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for showing up. Please know I will be sending a recap email to each and every one of you. I did want to share the the Buy Black. And let me go to my notes. I'm going back to my script, Kenneth. Usually we have Philip Dunn facilitating with you, and you guys are a dynamic duo. All right, so USBC introduced Buy Black, the only Black certification program with a business directory providing businesses that certify access to private and public procurement opportunities, highlights, and other benefits. This online program can help prepare you for the contracting space as a documents preparation guide. So please, if you haven't already, certify today by visiting usblackchambers.org/certifications. The Small Business Digital Ready program, hosted by Verizon, has been in effect since 2021, and they've awarded $15 million in grants to small businesses nationwide. They're there to help you level up your small business. They've partnered with LISC, which is a nonprofit with decades of experience managing grant programs, to award more than 145 grants this year. So there's a $10,000 grant that is available for you to apply, and to hit the application criteria is just to complete 2 courses of training that are free. Some courses are 10 minutes, some courses are 30 minutes. And you only apply once in 2026, and you'll remain eligible for $10,000 throughout the rest of this year. Lindustry. U.S. Black Chambers has partnered with Lindustry. So, under resourced small businesses deserve a fair chance at affordable financing. That's why USBC has joined with Lindustry to provide loans designed for small businesses and local communities. If you're interested in applying for credit but not sure about the type of financing you may need, or if you qualify, scan the QR code, and USBC is always here to help you through the process. So we just want to say thank you. Access to capital is layered with many different moving pieces. This summer, USBC, keep a lookout, will be facilitating a 4-week boot camp. And we will be asking ACC to come and speak briefly on that boot camp. But before you go for the loan or apply for the grant, let's make sure that our credit, we are comfortable with it and that we have the support. So I want to say thank you again, Kenneth, Muhammad, to you and your entire team at ACCC. And thank you for being here today. And we can
Absolutely. Thank
close.
you so much for having me. Thank you for having me, and it's always a pleasure.
Kenneth, you rock, and I can't wait to meet with you next time.
Absolutely.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.